Hello.
Hello.
I got 2 free smartphones when I switched to Metro PCS.
One for him and one for me.
It's not for you. It's for people like me.
And parrots.
I knew I should have gotten a dog.
Get 2 free Samsung Galaxy J3 Prime smartphones when you switch 2 lines to Metro PCS and enjoy a 4G LTE network that's more reliable than ever before. Metro PCS. Wireless figured out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network are active on Metro PCS in past 90 days. See store for details, terms, and conditions.
Blog Talk Radio.
It's Thursday, February 28th, 2013, and this is the Hermetic Hour coming to you live from Southern California with your host, Folk Runyon. And tonight we will explain the fundamental and practical changes the Order of the Temple of Astarte has made in Kabbalah, Yoga, angel gender, the evocation of spirits, and both biblical and pagan mythology in order to make Hermetic visionary magic a gender-balanced system that men and women can feel is equally theirs and still be within the compass of the genuine Western esoteric tradition. Now, as most of you know, the Golden Dawn and the OTO and Freemasonry and the Rosicrucians are all patriarchal, male-dominated and male-oriented systems in which there is no true veneration of the divine feminine and little concern for the feminine viewpoint. Now, the OTA was founded in 1969 when modern neo-paganism was emerging as a dynamic spiritual force. We were very much influenced by Ferroferia and Robert Graves, and we knew that if traditional magic was to be valid in this modern age, the balance of male and female elements had to be created and maintained. And this, of course, is a controversial subject. And we'll be open to call-ins on the topic, and we're going to have some people calling in tonight. We'll have Joe Carson of Ferroferia a little later, and our two lodge masters from Austin, Texas, and Atlanta, Georgia. So tune in and find out about Traditional Magic's Affirmative Action Program. Well, I think I should start this off by saying that this is an issue that we have not really centered on. In the whole 2 years we've been doing these broadcasts, we haven't centered on this issue because we felt that it's a hot button for some people. There are, in the pagan community, there are a great number of people who believe that you have to dogmatically venerate the divine female over everything else in order to be acceptable to them, and so this becomes a hot button issue. Yet, even though we have, I think, gone several extra miles in our efforts from the beginning to balance our version of the Hermetic system, so that we have a balanced system. But we've avoided actually dealing with this because, as I say, it's one of these things that no matter what the facts are or how you how hard you try to do it, it's not going to please some people. And therefore, tonight we're going to try to tackle this in as nice a way as we can do as we can, and see if we can't at least we won't convert anybody, and we won't particularly change anybody's mind. But at least what we can do is let you know where we are at on this, so that if you hear otherwise, you will be better informed. That's the idea. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to just go back to 1969 when I first had my vision, and I was very, very ill, as most of you know, and I was very ill, and got into magic with as I was suffering from what would have been a terminal illness if I had been operated on, and so I was in a very I say almost an altered state. And my big visionary experience was contacting the goddess Astarte in the magic mirror using traditional ceremonial magic methods, the same methods that were used in the late Middle Ages and the Renaissance. And because I did it this way, I was very, very interested in Western ceremonial magic, and that put a good deal of work into it. And because I was successful and brought up the goddess to visible appearance, communicated with her, and she inspired me to name a magic order that I was founding, and as her as the patron goddess. Now, I want to point out that when I was doing this, the neo-pagan movement was really getting going. It was getting started, and we were very much aware of the feminine aspect in the new pagan tradition or traditions. And so I had no, and especially having contacted the goddess Astarte, a very, very powerful archetype who was completely kind of bowled me over when I contacted her. I was very much aware that traditional ceremonial magic, like the Golden Dawn and even the OTO, just were not really venerating. They didn't have a equal place for the feminine, and the Golden Dawn was completely androgynous, so women could take any part in the ritual, but the rituals had no, they didn't have any feminine aspects to them. So in that case, the Golden Dawn wasn't necessarily anti-female. It just didn't have anything to do with the feminine viewpoint. And the OTO, on the other hand, which they had a feminine figure, Babylon, which I have a lot of friends in the OTO, and we have OTO members in the OTA. They're also in the OTA, so I don't want to pass judgment on Babylon, because at least Jack Parsons had a very, very beautiful concept of Ptolemaic Babylon. He did. I will say this: I don't think Crowley's concept of Babylon was very pro-feminine at all. And but Jack Parsons, oh yeah, in fact, his concept of Babylon was very beautiful. But regardless of that, I was reading Crowley and Crowley's attitude toward women and whatever. So I don't think. And when you look through the Golden Dawn, the OTO rituals, which are published, of course, you realize that there's not much there until you get to the 9th degree, and their concept of the Great Rite, or the 9th degree as they called it, was that the woman didn't even have to know what was going on while you were doing it. And I wouldn't say that that's very pro-feminine. So not be critical now. I'm just saying that I didn't find any of this to be in keeping with the modern spirit. I thought we should have an order in which the male and female aspects were equally important. And sure, we would divide up the work between the male and the female side, obviously. So what I did, I started by taking the traditional 4 archangels of the quarters. That's Raphael, Gabriel, Michael, and Oriel. And I personified them as male and female. The male elements, air and fire, were I drew with my artistic ability, as limited as it may be. I drew icons of these 4 angels in male and female personifications. And as far as I know, that's the first time anybody did that. The angels were always, frankly, pictured as effeminate men. I mean, and so I decided, hey, let's personify the elements and the angels that control the elements. That was the first thing I did, aside from venerating Astarte. And then when I started to write the first rituals, I thought that, we have a call waiting. When I started to write the first rituals, I realized when we have initiations, the priestess is just as important as the priest in an initiation. So you can't, the way I structured the order, you couldn't hardly even open a lodge without a priestess. You had to have the priestess in the west and the priest in the east, and the two of them work together. And in the second degree initiation, the big second degree, which is our big, was originally our first initiation, the priestess stands between the pillars and anoints the candidate's psychic centers, which is the most important aspect of his or her physical initiation. And then after that, the candidate goes over to the altar, and the priest administers the oath, and that's that. So the priest and the priestess are essential, and both have very, very equally important parts. Well, actually, the priestess is more important because she's the one who actually does the spiritual initiation. So the OTA is very definitely it's just very definitely evenly balanced, and we made every effort to make it that way. And by the way, I will mention that it's traditionally, and it's true, that women make the best psychic receivers, both on the crystal ball and on the dark mirror. And however, even though they are the best receivers, we don't just do this business of having a man stand behind the woman and he waves the wand and mumbles mutters the conjuration, and she sits there and gets the spirit. In our system, the woman operates and the man operates back and forth. Right? We don't believe in just having a man or having one person doing the operating and people, either men or women, receiving. You have to do everything. Everybody has to do it. So this is not a business of exploiting the woman as a good receiver, although they are better receivers than men. Now, one thing I have discovered in ceremonies, especially in operations where we are invoking angels or evoking spirits, if we don't have a woman in the temple, in the circle, if it's just the men, our magic is nowhere near as effective. You have to have a woman involved, either operator, receiver, server, whatever it happens to be. She's got to have a woman there to complete this dynamic. And so, a good example of this, I think, is Gerald Gardner, who was a Mason and a member of the OTO. He founded Gardnerian Witchcraft. Gerald Gardner wrote a novel, started off by writing a novel called High Magic's Aid. And this novel really tells you more about the inner workings of witchcraft and magic than any of the other Gardner books that he wrote, because he was two fumbling British ceremonial magicians who really wanted to go to Spain to get to learn from the Kabbalists and all in Spain how to be magicians, and they were trying to do ceremonial magic and nothing worked, and they just fumbled around and none of their spells worked until finally they ran into a young woman who had some witchcraft ability. And then everything they did worked. And this is why the title of the book was High Magic's Aid. Now, Gardner was right on the nose. He was right on the mark. You have to have this female energy, and you have to have this female vision and female intuition. And if you don't have it, you really don't have a magical system, I think, personally. So, in the OTA, you could have a priestess who could be the mistress of a lodge. Wouldn't be any problem at all. She'd need a priest, but she could be the mistress. And the priest, it doesn't matter. In fact, one of the first people we chartered was our Soror Cara, who was our first priestess. And she was a brilliant woman, had a doctorate from MIT in political science, and she was a terrific magician. And eventually went through the whole Vajrayana Guinea program and everything else, And so I just really can't, I can't stress this enough that magic has to have a balanced aspect, both in its pantheon, because we established our seasonal ceremonies and on the Canaanite pantheon with Astarte and Baal's inspiration. And we've had those seasonal ceremonies. We've run them for 40 years now. We've been doing them 4 times a year, and people love them. They're really good. But in those seasonal ceremonies, the goddess figures, both Astarte and the moon goddess Tanit, they really run the show. They're more powerful than Baal, and Astarte is eternal, and she comes down and raises Baal. He's a year king. He dies every year. And she has to come down and resurrect him. And Tanit, the great moon goddess, she controls Lotan, the force of chaos. And so consequently, our seasonals venerate the feminine aspect in superior form, actually. And I've lovingly made a couple of statues of Astarte for our temples, and one of them I decorated and modified for one. Okay, we have a call in. You're on the air. Who are we speaking with?
Hey, Poke. This is Frater Heracles in Austin, Texas.
Wow, hi there, brother Heracles. Now, we were talking earlier, and you were on this topic, and you were mentioning the biblical problem, because we have this Solomon and we have this biblical base and all that. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, a lot of the issues run into with people that are interested in working Goetia and working Solomonic magic, and then we bring them the Hermetic tradition and say, look, this is how we do it in the OTA. And the first thing that always seems to pop up is like, this is just way too patriarchal. This is way too, which was just like it was a nice way of saying it's way too biblical. And like, so they had a problem with the Bible itself and the fact that the tradition, held on to a Western biblical background, even though that's pretty much where a lot of our tradition comes from. Even though it's paganized, you still have the biblical tradition within the OTA, and a lot of the modern feminist perspectives. Not that I'm a scholar or anything on this subject, but it seems to be that the Bible's view of women, and treatment of women, especially in the Old Testament, where basically, if you weren't a virgin when you got married, they'd take you and stone you in front of your dad, and you're considered property, pretty much,
Yeah.
And in the New Testament, even they tell you, women should be quiet and submissive, and the Bible doesn't have a good viewpoint of, or a tradition of, venerating the feminine. But that's if you're looking for, an biblical background. If you look in Esther, you look in other, in Judges or whatever, there's pro-feminist stories too. There's multiple voices in the Bible, but people tend to point out, the patriarchal system was very anti-women, and we, as Hermeticists, hold on to this biblical basis because of Solomon and the wisdom of Solomon, in connection with the Goetia. So why do we hold on to the Bible?
All right, let me answer all of that, because I know that is a problem. And it's a problem basically, I think the problem is basically that they don't realize that Solomon, King Solomon, was actually, if you read the Bible, you don't even have to read it carefully, just read it. If you go through the building of Solomon's temple, the whole series, the whole stories of Solomon, everything, Solomon, including Ecclesiastes later on, you get a very strong impression that this man really wasn't. He really wasn't in the mode, or he wasn't in the mode of the Levites, of the prophets, or any of that. In fact, if there ever was a Solomon, and I think there probably was, if there ever was, he certainly didn't worship YHVH, because they didn't even have YHVH at that time. That was a medieval development. But he obviously was what we would now call a pagan, and he worshipped El. By the way, the ten lost tribes of Israel worshipped El. They didn't worship Yahweh. It was just the Levites and the Benjaminites that were the only ones that did. And the Benjaminites were almost wiped out for sodomy and cannibalism and whatever, and there was only a couple of them left, and then they told them they could go out and kidnap Canaanite women to repopulate the tribe. And then the Levites, of course, the priests, and that's all the actual Yahweh worshipers at that time were. Solomon worshipped El, the great god of the Canaanites, the god of Melchizedek, which we concede. And El wasn't a bachelor. He was married to Asherah of the Sea, who was the feminine goddess, and she was equal to him. And I said in a seasonal ceremony book, El was very compassionate. He wasn't like Yahweh. Of course, Yahweh was a bachelor, and he was all, he was kind of a misanthrope, and he was vengeful and hateful and everything. But El, the only thing wrong with El was he got drunk every once in a while. But of course, he's married to the mother of the goddess, the mother goddess, so she can clean up after him. That's fine. And then a couple of times he went down and seduced a couple of girls on the beach. Cooked a chicken for him one time. But El was a nice guy. He was, and this is the God of Solomon. This is the God of Hiram of Tyre. When they built that temple, and Solomon said, "I want to build a temple," and Hiram of Tyre said, "Praise the Lord." Well, they weren't praising Yahweh, or there wasn't even a Yahweh at that time. There was just a sort of a Yah or something like that. That little God in a box, that nasty little critter in the box that really wasn't the universal God at all. He was just, he was a god of this little tribe, providing that they did everything he wanted. And so, but Solomon
built this temple to El. He had Hiram of Tyre, the Phoenicians working on it, and this is the legend of Masonry. The legend of Masonry is that Solomon and Hiram of Tyre and Hiram of Bith, the architect, who was half Jewish and half Phoenician, he had a Jewish mother or Hebrew mother and a Phoenician father. They built the temple, and this is the united. These people are under El, and Melchizedek was a priest of El, and I try to get people, the Bible haters to realize this. I don't like Moses. I don't like that whole Old Testament thing. And I don't think Jesus liked it very much either. Remember, Paul said 3 times that Jesus was a priest after the order of Melchizedek. Well, what does that mean? Now, so what we have here is, this keeps us, by the way, the idea of I got another call. Hello, who are we talking to now? Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Who? Yeah, who's on?
This is Anthony calling from San Diego.
Well, Anthony, are you on the topic tonight? And if so, what is your question? Or what do you want to talk about?
Yes, Spoke. I have been following the talk tonight. I had a Kabbalistic question for you, actually.
Well, is it on this topic, though, Anthony? This is a very topic oriented. We're dealing with the feminine aspect in modern ceremonial magic. And are you on that?
Yes, I had a question about Sophia, actually.
Okay. That's Greek.
Yeah. So Sophia is the divine wisdom in Greek, and in the Kabbalistic studies, Chokmah is generally considered to be masculine. And I was curious if that would change at all, because I know that you ascribe El, as you were speaking, to Chokmah, and Asherah to Binah, which could be considered Shekinah. So I was curious if that swaps at all, since in Greek, wisdom is feminine.
Oh boy! Well, we're kind of hair splitting there, because Chokmah is masculine, and so we're putting El there, and then Binah, we are applying Asherah to the sea there. That is in the lower. That's in the outer tree. That's in the 10-sphere tree. The 11-sphere tree in the inner order, Binah becomes the realm of the fixed stars, and Da'at becomes Saturn. So, but I don't see anything different about that. As far as Sophia is concerned, it's a feminine version of wisdom. Well, it's curious to, right along the line of what we're saying, that Sophia is the thought of God, and that's wisdom, and it is feminine. Now, I don't know whether that answers your question or not, but
no, that was very insightful. I just have one more question. If Binah becomes the realm of the fixed stars, would you still consider that pillar, the left pillar, a feminine pillar, or does that become masculine in your system?
Actually, masculine and feminine pillars, that's kind of a shallow priority. Those 2 pillars can accommodate both aspects. But then again, men and women accommodate both aspects. So I suppose we could rationalize it that way. But however, you're moving the realm of the fixed stars over to the female, which means, and that's, I would think that the realm of the fixed stars would be a more feminine aspect, wouldn't you say? That's deep space. That's like we say in a seasonal ceremony, in my cup of darkness. It comes to Astarte has the great celestial cup of darkness, and that is feminine. Huh. And in the it's nurturing. It's the womb of creation, so to speak. So I think that would accommodate that.
So from a Taoist perspective, would you say that Binah is yin and Hakma is yang, well, Kether is
yes,
Tao.
absolutely, and that's a very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. That's the two-stroke engine. That really is. When you look at the tree, now that's Bria, and that's the two-stroke engine for the 10-sphere tree. It really is, and it's male and it's female as far as in the greater aspect of their symbolism. And in a monist perspective, because the orthodox Kabbalistic tree is sort of dualist, especially with the Qliphoth, which the monist we take in the modern Hermetic tradition, we see the tree as from a monist perspective. There is no Qliphoth. You roll around the dark side of the spheres, and it can get pretty bad for you if you want it to. And I kind of like Kenneth Grant. I'm not, I'm a fan of Kenneth Grant, but I don't, buy spheres. But I like his tunnels of set. That fits in with a monist, fits in with the monist concept of the tree. But let's get back to the subject, John. You're still hanging on there, right?
I'm still here, Pope. Yeah.
Yeah, you're here. Okay, good. The point that we need to make with these people, and it's very, very difficult to make this point, is that we have only aspects of the Bible that we use are the aspects that are compatible with classic Hermetic paganism and the classical pagan proposition in general.
There's many voices in the Bible. I mean, it's many authors, and so the Solomonic story, the stories of Solomon, the Song of Solomon. I know that's very important in the OTA. That's probably one of the most.
Not only is it very important, but I want to say something else right here. We didn't know until the full Zohar was published. We were not aware of this. Now, Jan Potocki, who wrote the Saragossa manuscript, he knew it. But he had a really good Kabbalistic instructor way back in 1841. The Shar Sharim, the Song of Solomon, is the heart of the Zohar. It's the heart. The Zohar is magnificently, erotically pagan. Did you know that?
Not until I met you.
That's right. And oh God, Solomon jumps on old Shemal, the Canaanite mother of eagles, and flies to the dark mountain where the Elohim, the fallen angels are chained in the dark mountain and gets his wisdom. Oh, the Zohar is full of very, 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 very impressive pagan mythology. And people don't know this. I mean, so many of these people, and I feel sorry for them. God, they were treated when they were kids. They had the Bible, somebody's version of the Bible rammed down their throats, and now I have some problems with Jesus. I love Jesus, but but then again, on the other hand, Jesus he didn't care about the successful people and leaders. He wasn't interested in them at all. He was only preaching to the downtrodden. And you could translate that into the 75% who just would like to do a day's work, get a day's pay, but most of them at that time were slaves. They were literally slaves. They had no chance to have a part of any kind of prosperity. So Jesus preached. His plebiscite, or he was just preaching to the downtrodden, and there was nothing in his preaching that applied to the 25% of people all over the world who want to get ahead and run things and do things, and so consequently, they're kind of left out, and they're just told that, well, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to go to heaven. I don't.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
another thing that turns people off a lot too. Is like the biblical guilt stuff. You know.
I know. Yeah,
guilt.
That's my complaint with Jesus. Now, I'm not. I used to be a Christian. I was raised a Christian, and I went to a fundamental Christian college. It was a liberal arts college, but they had a ministerial group. It was fundamental, and that's when I stopped being a Christian. It was when I saw how those ministerial students treated the rest of the students. I just said, I can't do this anymore.
But you don't get that in Hermeticism. You don't get all that in Hermeticism.
No, the Hermetic philosophy is for the 25%. Men and women. I mean, this has nothing to do with gender or race or anything like that. It's for the 25% who are the leaders, who are the thinkers, the doers, the people that are really out there running things. That's the people who know what it's all about. And the Hermetic philosophy is for them. At the same time, Hermetic philosophy it promotes compassion, it promotes charity, not quite as much as Christianity, but it has a moral compass. So I don't mean, actually, you may be thinking that, well, he's describing Thelema. No, I'm not, because Thelema is a form of Gnosticism. It's not a form of Hermeticism, at least not the way I look at it. And Hermetic philosophy, of course, can be misused, but Hermetic philosophy is essentially for the elite. And yet, at the same time, you're supposed to be honorable, and you're supposed to be charitable, and you're supposed to realize that every other human being, no matter whether he's of the 75% or whatever, they have just as much God in them as you do. It's just that they don't know it. And unfortunately, they probably never will. And so you should be compassionate because you realize, just like the Hindus say, Namaste. The God within me salutes the God within you. And that's where the compassion comes in, and the morality in Hermetic practice. But otherwise, it's elite, and it's just as elite for women as it is for men. My gosh, Hypatia was she was an out-and-out Hermetic adept, and she's a brilliant woman. Who am I talking with?
This is still John.
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
Hi.
I was just mentioning Hypatia. Who am I talking with?
This is Sora Isis.
Oh, hi, Sora Isis. You called at an opportune time because I was just mentioning Hypatia. So, welcome aboard. What would you like to say on the topic?
I just wanted to say, with your seasonals, I've played all the goddesses and all the parts, and always thought Field and Vine were very evenly matched, and I never felt insulted or slighted in any way,
Well, good.
Yeah.
You're in the. Well, I don't see. You're right. I don't see how anybody could do these seasonal ceremonies and not realize that we're really trying to balance. And gosh, exactly. I did it under the inspiration of the. Yeah, I did it under the inspiration of the goddess originally, anyway. And then, of course, I got to admit this. We were doing Farafarian seasonal ceremonies up until Jeanette, my wife, said, "Oh, we got to have seasonal ceremonies of our own." And so that's how it got started. And Jeanette, kind of spurred me on. My sister Artemis, and we did them, we've just had so much pleasure from doing them, and I just can't tell you, Sister Isis, I just can't tell you how wonderful it was to come and visit you two, and participate in both initiation and in a beautiful seasonal. And
Thank you.
It was just absolutely delightful. And
Thank you.
Yeah. And anything that you would like to add about the seasonals?
I just wanted to say that in my life I've learned that, to be a good magician is like being a good psychic. You have to let go of personal fears and limitations, before you can become, a good channel,
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you something interesting about that. I started off, when I first started off magic, I ran into a previous incarnation. When I first started doing previous incarnation work. In that previous incarnation, I eluded me. The one I first started off with. And I knew his name. But he eluded me for years and years and years and years and years. And finally, when I finally recovered that previous incarnation, so many things came true. It was like that wonderful book you wrote, you know, the Atlantis Gate. By the way, while you're on here, let's give a plug for your book, and that's the Dolphin Gate. The Dolphin Gate, and by just Dolphin Gate, and it's on Amazon, and you can go and get it, and it deals with this issue, you know, it's a previous incarnation affecting your present day, and that's something I can really relate to. I can really relate to that. So anyway, let's see. And Andrea just passed me a note here. It says, well, I'll ask you, tell us a little bit about the Dolphin's Gate.
Well, gosh, I'm always so bad at this. Well, it's a story about reincarnation and how the past can have this huge impact on your present life. You know, it's kind of a metaphor for that, and it's the heroine. You know, she of course gets totally attacked by her past. You know, and she has to literally do battle with who and what she was. You know, before, and confront old enemies and old fears and things like that. You know, so that's basically the premise. You know, of the book. And Dolphin Gate is only book one. You know, it's going to be three books.
This I recommend it very highly for a number of reasons. But one reason is that Elizabeth is really a top-notch psychic, and this is both the. So she gives you the inside impression and the pain and the tribulation that goes along with being a psychic, which a lot of people, you know, the Hollywood version of a psychic, you very seldom ever see anything like or experience anything like this. So you really get the inside impression from the book, and it's an exciting story too. And so I think we all ought to support you there and get on and Amazon and get Dolphin's Gate. And is Mike right there?
Yeah, he's here. I want to say one more thing, though, to everyone listening. I want to say, when it comes to magic and the seasonals and everything, trust the outcome and don't distrust the process. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I want to say.
In fact, that's part of the whole problem. That's part of the magic right there, is believing in what you do. Okay. Yeah. Is Mike here?
Yeah, hold on. Is Mike here? Yeah, hold on.
Oh, hey, Poke, how you doing? This is
pretty good. Fred or Osiris, we were I really enjoyed talking with your better half there, and we have an extra. We're on extra, tonight, so we have some extra time. So, just go for it. Tell us what you think about this particular issue, because this is something really that we haven't addressed before, and it's something that, and after talking with John, what John mentioned is very, very, very right to the mark. Here we have a system where we actually are using biblical mythology. We're selecting very carefully for biblical mythology this palatable for us, but we're using biblical things because we need it for the Kabbalah, and we also need it for the Solomonic link to ceremonial magic. But,
that's absolutely true, and I'll be happy to talk and until we say something stupid enough to try to get some of the ladies should really call in, because this is a subject where we need them to call in and talk. And so after I'm done, I'm going to try to put Sore Isis back on the phone. But so we're talking about, so is the OTA system, is it patriarchal, is it matriarchal, or is it really archal at all, or is it just archetypal, right? And so in the biblical system,
look, it's not androgynous. The Golden Dawn is androgynous, but this we didn't. We tried to be balanced, between the
absolutely.
Two. Yeah.
And to pick up the dramatic dynamics, but between the sexes and the polarities of the divine, and you see that in the seasonals, and you see the balance in the work, and you see the dynamics in the mythos of the seasonals that we work, and I would think to be patriarchal, you're dealing with really a mythos in the Bible that has politicized the cosmos. When you think about the heavens that are portrayed mythologically, you have Yahweh on the throne, and heaven is portrayed as this Bronze Age king's court, and except when he appears on Earth and is flaming, with the wheels that turn this way and that, and that's obviously like a Bronze Age war chariot. So, those metaphors they come from a time when the patriarchy was on the ascendancy, but in the Solomonic magical tradition, there's the opportunity to activate in the same mythos, the very different aspect of that, and you see that in the seasonals, that this is not about who's boss, right? It's about the interaction between Astarte and Baal, Astarte and Mot, Baal and Tanit, and all the energy and the drama that comes from that, the transformation that comes from that polarity, and so anyway, that's my 2 cents. But I'm really excited and hoping that some of the Soars will call in and speak to this, because I think that's what's important for this show. Yeah.
We're waiting on Joe Carson. I wonder if she's she's here. Joe, are you back there somewhere? I mean, Joe's in the chat room. Oh, come on, Joe, get on the. Oh, tell her to get on the phone, will you? My gosh, Joe is the closest thing that we have to a I would say a hermetic female avatar, and so hopefully she'll switch over from the chat room. And Joe, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, folks.
Oh, finally.
Well, I was waiting for a good moment. You had a lot going on.
Well, we're having a grand time, but it's a very important issue, and it's a very, very important subject, and one we've been actually, frankly, avoiding for a while. So, what I'd like you to do, Joe, if you would, is recount how you kind of. From the OTA, you went. You met Fred through us, and got connected with Feraferia, and eventually, after Fred and Svetlana passed on, you're now the Avatrix of Feraferia. So, we're still helping you do ceremonies, and you've got this beautiful, beautiful book that I'm sitting here looking at, which we'll talk about. But tell us about your experience with Fred and Svetlana when you first met them and how it got started, would you?
Well, I would like to just mention that I actually joined the OTA back at the very beginning. I think I was like maybe the second person after Soror Cara to come in, and which puts me, way back there. I hate to mention how old I am, but nonetheless, it gives me a kind of a good perspective on sort of seeing how things have unfolded over time, and I think that there has been a shift, and you may not be aware of it because it's hard for people to be aware sometimes of, their own process, but somebody else can see it more clearly from a distance. That really, to be honest, you have gotten more sensitive and aware as time has gone on, and I think more clear in your thinking about the importance of, the equality of male and female, and I want to say that I appreciate that. I never felt put down, but at the same time, I just have noticed that there has been that shift over a period of time. So I just want to say I think that's great, and I had a lot of wonderful experiences with the OTA, but yeah, when you introduced me to Fred and Svetlana, somehow there was just something in my heart that opened up to that in a really special way. And I think, to be honest, that it has something to do with my vision that I had. We're all talking about our visions. My vision was some altered experience with no drugs, thank you, of kind of the laughter of the gods was the only kind of words I can come back with it, because it was a kind of absolutely not in English type of experience. It wasn't something that you can describe, but still it had that light and playful and very joyous quality, and it was absolutely that way. It wasn't, serious and morbid and like painful. It was like, oh my God, there is this incredible safety in just being, and I don't mean being alive as a human. I mean being, even with you're in a body or with you're not in a body, that there is this incredible safety in being, and that brought me to a point where when I met Fred, I was like, kindred soul, because the maiden goddess embodies this joyful, beautiful, positive, playful quality. So yeah, I was like magnetized. It spoke to me, and I was, and I am, to this day, very grateful to you for having introduced me to Fred and Svetlana. They've just been so profound in terms of what that has done for me in my life.
Well,
really beautiful.
They had tremendous influence on us, and we were doing basically the only seasonals we had were with Periferia until 73, and Jeanette, said, "Oh, we got to have seasonals. We with this Canaanite religion that you're researching and all this. We need we got Astarte as our patriarch. We got to have seasonals like Fred and Svetlana." So when I went to write the seasonal ceremonies that we've been talking about, well, frankly, I'll tell you the truth. I consulted with Fred, while I was writing them, and I'm not, I don't think I can't call him second writer on it, but it's still, I did, and I wanted to make sure while we were doing that we had this veneration of the goddess and had it all through, and so we made Astarte the eternal goddess and Baal the year king. He gets resurrected which is true because
it's perfect, yeah.
Yeah, because Jessie Weston's Ritual to Romance, which most of us have read, she traced the whole Holy Grail legend, and which is actually the legend of the Year King. It really is, and she traced it all the way back to ancient Canaan, and the shrine of Nafaka, and so I was very much aware of that. And also, I want to mention something else. The Western esoteric tradition is really divided, and it came about back in the early Middle Ages. It was divided between Greek mythology and the Kabbalah and the Kabbalistic aspect, because of course they were all. And one of the reasons why the Kabbalah was adopted, and the Kabbalah is Hermetic itself, by the way. It grew up in Alexandria, along with the other Hermetic systems. So but Fred recreated the Eleusinian mysteries, and this was so Fred. I'd say Fred's Hermetic. Yeah, he is. He was, but he was not doing the biblical. He was doing the Eleusinian mysteries. So we
we have Greek. We have a nice portion of Greek mythology that's also involved in the OTA. But the important thing here is to get the balance. And you're going to be coming down here pretty soon for your 5th degree, and I wish we could plug in the Queen of Sheba as the Grand Mistress of Masonry. I wish we could plug that in earlier, but it fits. It actually fits in the 5th degree of Greater Republic. It does. That's where it fits. So that's where it's going. And the Turks have this. And Michael, you'll appreciate this. I mean, really. This is a version of Masonry which epitomizes the female power. Because in this version of the Masonic legend, the Queen of Sheba kind of makes a fool out of Solomon and runs off with Hiram V. So she is, in a sense, becomes, in this sense, the third. She's the third mistress of Masonry, and I love this thing, and so we're presenting it in the 5th degree. Now, we want to say that the Queen of Sheba, by the way, was where Astarte, the goddess Astarte, which is actually became the goddess Aphrodite over in Greek. Astarte was the muse of the magicians during the Middle Ages. And if you don't think so, just read Byron's Manfred. He summons Astarte and calls her up. And then there's Goethe's Faust, and Faust goes after Astarte. Oh, she was. But then the Queen of Sheba was the muse of the Hermetic alchemists. Yeah, she really was. And so we're bringing those elements back in. And now I'm getting long-winded here. Joe, you want to talk about this book that you just this beautiful book that you just produced, the coffee table book?
Well, I'm not sure it's 100% on topic. Are you sure you want me to go into that?
Oh, I think it's on topic, very, very definitely on topic. Talk about it.
Okay, well, currently it's I guess it's 11 by 14 in size with hardbound and glossy paper and all that. And so it's got this beautiful sort of physical quality, and it's it's called the Fairfaria Path in Pictures. And the idea is that sort of instead of being kind of how writing and reading, it's all, left brain and linear, this is sort of more to speak in a more magical way to the right brain by having primarily imagery. And so every single page of the book is loaded with mostly artwork by Fred Adams and then photography, just simple evocative photographs of, little bits of rituals and, some sacred sites and, stone circles and things like that. And then the words that, are across from the images try to present the most important aspects of Fairfaria so that people can really get it. And, there's like a self-initiation into Fairfaria that one can undertake, and there's meditations that people can do and, little bits of, song and dance and things like that. So that a person just with this simple introductory book could actually make Fairfaria a part of their lives. So that's what it is.
Well, that's great. Now, when are we going to have this thing available to the general public?
Well, that remains to be seen. I had some nice luck at PantheaCon talking to, the senior accepting editor at Llewellyn and people like that from Weiser, and they liked it very much, but they don't actually do coffee table books or art books at all. So I'm, in case somebody out there has a keen notion on a really good publisher that is interested in sort of pagan material, this isn't like, sex secrets of this, inner tantric Kabbalists. It's not, it doesn't feel like that. It feels more like you could actually leave it on somebody's coffee table and, if their business associates came in, they might be a little intrigued by it, but they wouldn't be like horrified or, not that people should be horrified, but I'm just saying it's got a kind of a feel. It's not a real, in that world of being heavily sort of scary to fundamentalist, shall we say. And yet it does have this profound joy and beauty, that Fair Fairy seems to somehow epitomize. So I am looking for a publisher. I have copies of the book that I'll be bringing down to, and how is it that I have copies? Because this is like a online printing service that I'm using, and each copy of the book is like $80, which is insane, really expensive. But that's just what you have to do to get that kind of quality. I'm doing these basically as a layout or mock-up to show to a publisher, here's what I would like to do. So, I mean, someone can certainly buy one at that rate, but I'm not expecting people to be jumping into it. Just it's a very hefty price tag. So I'm hoping to find a real publisher who can, make it on sort of a massive basis and, bring the price right
get it
down.
out there for under $40.
Yes, that's the goal.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's at under 40. If you get it for under 40, they will. And I'm oh gosh, I mean, I wish we could get people to look at this. I mean, it's just a beautiful job, and frankly, Paraferia, it seems at first glance that Paraferia is very soft and fluffy. It seems that way at first glance, but it is. Fred and Svetlana both were really, really talented writers and poets and scholars, because they did their library. Fred's library was overwhelming. It was like John Dee's library must have been. I mean, and they were very, very erudite, very cultured, and Paraferia has its delightful complexity. And one of the things I want to mention about that is the celestial aspect of Paraferia. Sure, it's Earth-centered, because Earth is the holy environment, and it's feminine, and it is. But at the same time, Fred was a very, very good astrologer, and he was also very much aware of cosmic aspects and fascinated by them. Earth-centered, of course, but that's what Hermetic astrology is, Earth-centered, and so he was able to bring the cosmos down to Earth. And these are aspects of Hermetic. This is why, when I say Fred was a Hermetic magician, very definitely. And yet at the same time, he absolutely venerated the divine feminine. I mean, and we're trying to balance where Fred, and Svetlana were completely venerating, which is fine. This is great, but at the same time, the cosmic element was certainly there.
There is, I'll just say about the cosmology of Paraferia, it's like at the center of the universe, and we're talking all universes here in terms of physical and non-physical. The idea was that Corey was sort of dancing at the center and keeping the whole thing going, or is, I shouldn't say was. But then that around her, kind of in the slightly more, not physical, way above that, but somewhat distant from, her dance of centrality, there was the kind of the great mother, the great father, the divine youth, and the Corey who is more available to us, shall we say. Yeah. And then within that level of complexity, we have the twin maidens. And the twin maidens, who are within that Corey who's dancing around the circle with the rest of the divine family, the twin maidens embody the light celestial Corey, who is sort of Aphrodite, and then the Corey Persephone, who went down into the underworld and changed forever the nature of human life to create basically eternal life for humans and reincarnation for those who wish it. And so she went down there to kind of create wholeness and to complete herself, and yet she is the twin of the Corey who is like the Aphrodite, the Corey on the surface of the earth that sort of carries life and, the daytime version. And I wanted to just mention that because understanding the Fair-Feria mythos is complicated, and it took me decades to do it. So I just thought I'd put it out there for people.
Well, one thing of many good things about this, and I'm glad that you held forth on this, because I want to point something out. This idea that an intellectual approach, a scholarly approach, a magnificent cultural understanding of these things is somehow not feminine, is, frankly, Fred and Svetlana completely overcome that idea immediately. And, because, my gosh, I have to admit, I can't, some of Fred's concepts are, I have kind of a hard time getting my arms around them sometimes. I mean, and, frankly, this idea that about complex astrological relationships and Kabbalistic relationships are somehow not feminine. Oh, come on. We have more women graduating from college than men these days. Women they're better at, and Lauren over here is a better astrologer than I am, and a heck of a lot better computer person than I am, too. I mean, there's no, to say that something that's intellectual is somehow anti-feminine, I just don't see that at all. Do you?
No, not at all. I'm just thinking, I'm wondering whether there's maybe other people that are dying to call in that maybe I should get off the phone. But I will mention this, because I just want to say this before I get off, that I think that, even though I was very, I went over to Fair-Feria, I was still active in the OTA for a long time before I got so completely involved in Fair-Feria. And really, there were always as many women as men in it. I mean, it was never like a male-dominated thing in terms of just who was in it and, the feeling of it. I just want to put that, at least that was my perspective.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And of course you moved up there to Northern California, right. But you're up for fifth degree pretty shortly, so we're going to enjoy that. Of course, I say you're going to enjoy that like that Queen of Sheba. We're going to throw in the Queen of Sheba, whether the Masons like it or not. Actually,
this sounds fun.
They look the other way on that one. Steiner, by the way, Rudolf Steiner adopted that. He called that the Temple Legend and adopted it. So it has a precedent of being adopted into the Western tradition. And but I think the Queen of Sheba is just really kind of redeems things. Also, too, I'd like to mention one more thing while you're still on. The dodecahedron that we have, that we're using now presently, Fred's and Jim Ordonez's dodecahedron, which you have a beautiful photograph of here in the book, we're using that as an altar, and as a fifth degree altar, inner order, celestial magic altar. And this, remember I mentioned that you could conceivably grid this thing off and use it as a form of Soma Sophia. And, I never would have been able to put the Soma Sophia together if it wasn't for Fred. For his kind of Fred's thinking, Fred's various enneaspheres that he did and all of this. Because the Soma Sophia is the celestial goddess. She's the goddess that runs right around the zodiac.
Oh, perfect. Yes, that's
right.
Yeah, one side and down the other. Right.
Right. And while we were working on this, while I was working on this, Fred was sending me these photographs of Alexandrian sarcophagi with the Soma Sophia goddess in the inside, with all the on the sarcophagus lid with all the signs, the zodiacal signs around her and everything.
Yeah.
Now, when we had the memorial for Fred, I had one of the ones that Fred has sent me. I had a big mounted photograph. You remember, it was about 4 feet long.
Yeah.
And we had that right there on the table, where we were doing the ceremony. We got another call. Who's on?
Fronter Office is here.
Who was that again?
Front office from Birmingham.
I don't recognize it. Now, who am I talking with? Well,
I seem to be maybe I'm having a little phone trouble here.
Well, it's when you get the phone trouble straightened out.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Who am I talking with?
Okay, this is Front Office from Birmingham.
Freeman. Oh, that's Freeman. Oh, yeah, hi. Yeah, so, what do you've been listening to all of this, I assume?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that, of course, I'm fairly new to the CHS OTA, but I had a pretty long background in various kinds of mysticism and magic beforehand, and one of the things I've noticed about it is that I was led by goddesses before I even knew it. And it was one of those things that just became gradually revealed that, hey, the essence of the whole thing for me is balancing myself by understanding the divine feminine and my internal feminine. You know, I was led to do some really intense anima work in 1997, 98. about the time I was easing myself out of my Zen practice. And I had no idea what it was for. And then when I met Lilith, as in I met my wife Lilith and then the goddess Lilith, and so on like that, and later on Inanna and the others, I finally understood. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, fess up now. You've been looking over my shoulder for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah. Exactly. And and anyway, obviously the OTA is practically the place where I could do full-blown Western esoteric tradition and not always be sort of dodging and flinching and going, yeah, but wait, what about the female side? So I'm really glad glad y'all did what you did and that I blundered into it. Well, thank you for your kind words, Freeman. And really, we try. Let's what? Front office, yeah, right. What we tried to do, and we've been discussing this off and on all evening. What we tried to do was modernize this tradition so that the feminine aspect could manifest equally, and this has, I think personally, this has improved the magic, really improved it. And the reason being, as I said, when we have a night, we occasionally we do, we'll have a lodge night when we won't have a woman or two women show up. It's pretty rare, but when it happens, and the guys try to sit around the altar and stare at the crystal ball, or if the moon's right, we try to do Goetia. It doesn't have the same power. It doesn't you need a woman, even like I say, you need not just as a receiver. That's best, but I mean, if just have a woman in the circle, it improves vastly. The dynamic is there, and frankly, the muse, magic is an art. It's definitely an art. It's a composite art like grand opera, and magicians need a muse, whether they're male or female. And
exactly. I think I had to go through that business of meeting my anima before I could really even do anything magically. So there's an as above, so below thing going on there.
Well, you've read The White Goddess, I know.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Well, this is a book we all read, and then usually we end up having to read it again, and then a while goes by, and somebody says, "How about the White Goddess?" Well, I got to read it again before I can talk about it. Every time I read it, I learn something. But Graves really hit it right on the nail. I mean, the female mystery and the female presence, the female this is what magic's all about. Is the supernatural muse, and the moon, of course, really relates to that. Now, one of the things we did, just to show you how far we went in this direction, the Rasham Ra text gave us a pretty good idea of what Canaanite seasonal ceremonies were like back in Melchizedek's time. However, we didn't have a good Canaanite moon goddess. Now, we had a great Venus goddess. We had Astarte was, absolutely terrific, but we did not have a powerful moon goddess. And the reason was that the moon was masculine in those days to them, to the Canaanites, and who have I got on the phone this time? Who are you? Identify yourself. Who are you? Who am I talking with? Hello?
Hello.
Who is it?
Hi, how you going?
Who?
Can you guys hear me?
Well, wait a minute. Now speak slowly and distinctly and tell us who you is.
My name's Gennaro. How are you guys going?
Well, who are you?
I'm Gennaro. What can I do for you? I just wanted to ask you guys a question.
Okay, ask it quick. I hope it's on topic.
So I'm having a bit of a hard time with my religion. Yesterday, Satan appeared to me in a dream, and he told me that I need to take over the world and do a whole bunch of stuff, and it was pretty evil looking. And then all of a sudden, the next night, I had a dream about God, and he started whipping me on the ass and trying to cut my testicles off.
Well, then, tell you what. Do 2 pentagram rituals and call me in the morning.
But do you think that will fix it?
Well, come on. To get back to the subject, the muse that we get in the White Goddess is just the idea that that's the source of all true poetry. Is just magnificent. By the way, the White Goddess was quite an influence on Fred, and of course I just loved it too. The point that I want to bring up about this is that the feminine aspect is portrayed in the cosmos, and the moon, as we were talking about, was to the Middle Easterners back in Melchizedek's time was male. Sin in the Sumerian Akkadian tradition was male, moon god. In fact, they used to call Haran the city of the moon god. Now, we knew, however, under the influence of the White Goddess, we felt that we are not going to use Nicole, even though I like the name because it reminds me of an old girlfriend. Nicole was she was the wife of the moon god Yarick, and come on now, we don't want the wife of the moon god. We not today. We need a Canaanite, an ancient Canaanite moon goddess that has some oomph. We need a real we need a White Goddess, we really do. So we went over to Carthage, and a few hundred years later, Phoenician colony, they were Phoenicians, and they had a really, really, really powerful moon goddess, Tanit. Oh boy, was she powerful! She was so powerful that she probably inspired well, this according to Idris Shaw anyway, she probably inspired the European witchcraft cult. And so we said, okay, we're going to use Tanit. We want a powerful moon goddess, and we did. And that worked out beautifully. And Tanit has that mysterious symbol, it looks like what we call the Tanitrum, and that's one of the symbols of the OTA. And we really, our seasonal ceremony with Tanit, when she comes in and Lotan, the dragon of chaos, runs everybody out of the henge, and he's about to defeat Baal, and Baal is just cowering, and Lotan is, Lotan says, your spines and thorns are hardly horns, your wit is near its end. What is this have you remaining before my doom descends? The chimes ring 9 times, the goddess Tanit enters the henge from the west, wearing her lighted headdress. Parentheses, her candles may be used, but glow sticks are safer and more reliable. Yeah. And Baal says, oh, 'tis fair Tanit, lady of the moon, born with horns that wither so soon. She shines by night to vanish by day, rising in flame and setting cold gray. And Lotan, shrinks back with a moan of defeat. Curses foiled again. And Tanit comes in, beautiful white robes with her glow sticks on her headdress, and she has an eye on her hand, this all-seeing eye in the palm of her hand, and she says to Baal, Prince of Earth, hast thou forgotten that my rising rules the tide? By my cycle time is reckoned. Are not my phases nature's guide? I alone may master Lotan, hold him in his natural course. All thy solar fire and fury come to naught without my force. With a gentle hand I lead him in my net of silver rays to the golden seat of morning, where thy power now may blaze. Yeah. So that's what we did to come up with a better moon goddess than just the wife of the moon god. And I think we can be forgiven. Now, one thing I'd like to mention, too, about that, there are a couple of Canaanite reconstructions, pagan, neo-pagan Canaanite reconstructions, about 3 of them that I know of. And what they've tried to do is to recreate the Canaanite religion back in Melchizedek's time, just exactly as close as they can come to the way it was. Well, that's beautiful, and they have beautiful websites. One of them is Kind of Canoe. You can look that up. I think it's Kind of Canoe, the Purple People. Look it up on the website. It's beautiful. It's just absolutely beautiful. But try to recreate the Canaanite religion the way it was. They use triple metaphors for everything, and it just doesn't. I tried one time at Raven's Flight. I tried to read one of the Canaanite epics in the actually Canaanite style, and people were polite enough to sit to listen to it, but it really did. So what we did, in order to make it play and to make these characters come alive, we did it the way it would have done if it had survived. If it had survived all the way into the Renaissance and had been done at the Renaissance Fair, and I used the Chester Mystery Plays as models for it. So it gives it a St. George the Dragon kind of a effect. And it says John's online to ask about our visit next week. Yeah, John, you're still there, right?
I'm still here, Pope.
You're still good. Now we're coming your way next week, and I understand we're initiating 10 people in Austin with under your jurisdiction. You have 10 candidates, and then we have a lecture at the OTO Lodge there, and we're getting prepared for that. So have you got anything you'd like to tell us about or advise us for anybody about that situation?
Right, we're preparing for first-degree initiations at the OTA Hermitage, and here in Austin, Texas, and we're going to be doing the Spring Equinox Festival, the OTA style, with the maypole and Bale and Astarte, and we're going to have the hinge set up, and we're going to experiment by doing it indoors with river stones instead of the outdoors wood hinge, which is one of your suggestions to make a makeshift hinge was to use river stones for the planetary hinge.
Well, I wonder, Joe, are you still on the line, or are you have you departed? Joe made a hinge out of basalt pillars. She's got a picture of it in the book here, and we've seen this and done operations in it. She did these little basalt pillars. They're about 3 feet high, and that's very nice. But I remember Fred. And the reason why I suggested this to you, Fred Heracles, I suggested that based upon what Fred had done, and I still have Fred's stones, he got to gather these river stones and painted the planetary symbol in the color of the Venudum Mundum color, on the planetary symbols on the stones. And what we think we have to do, because our lodges, we're having more and more people want to open encamp. They want to have encampments. They want to open lodges. That's fine. That's great. But our equipment, as you know, is we got some equipment that you need to have. A hinge is a full size, 8 foot tall menhirs, or that's a pretty big project. So the stones. You can make a hinge with these river stones, and sure, it works. And what we need to do is more of this inspired improvising to get the equipment requirements easier, so people can actually get into operation. Along that line, we were talking tonight. Maureen and I were talking about a really interesting project. Making magic circle rugs. Boy. You got, but both you and Fred Osiris are both great carpenters and builders, and so it's not a problem for you guys. But for some people, some of these things are kind of daunting. You want to tell us a little bit about some of the equipment you've made?
Well, I've used the diagrams from the Book of Solomon's Magic, and also diagrams that you've sent me for various projects, and put together the horned altar, double cube horned altar, and the elemental circle made out of wood and like 1,000 layers of paint, and and they turned out beautiful. And we even utilizing the glow in the dark paint, the black light and all that, and which has a really cool effect. I really enjoy the black light of that. But on the I did have a question though. I was kind of you've already answered most of this, but just kind of as maybe a question for kind of summarize what we've all been talking about, is that we're seeking to balance ourselves, on various degrees of initiation, whether it's the first degree dealing with the elements and the seasons, or on up through this, the spheres of spirit. And I was just wondering, or the question I have is, what effect for the magician, do you believe that bringing the feminine into balance with the masculine in magical operations, what effect can the magician expect on a positive level on how it affects his journey with the great work?
Very good question, and let me put it this way. I think I'll answer your question with a observation from the past. Luke Culling, who was at one time before he died, he was our senior advisor because he had one of the old magicians from the OTO during Jack Parsons' time and later on. So he was our senior advisor in Pasadena back in 1970-71. And Luke Culling wrote a book on sex magic in which he made the mistake, I think it was a big mistake, of suggesting that you make your holy guardian angel your sex partner, your Shakti. You should make her your holy guardian angel. And I think that this is exactly wrong. And the thing that working together with women and men together, working together with. Now, by the way, let me say this: as far as sex magic is concerned, that's strictly private between a man and his wife, or a woman and her husband, or two people who are each significant others, if you want to put it that way. That's what that's for. It's private. It's not anything that should be put on as a show or anything like that. And very beautiful, right? But you should, when you do that, the way we do it, the man and the woman helps the man assume the form of the god. And then the god, in turn, helps the woman assume the form of the goddess, or you can reverse it if you want to. And then the two of them, in the role of god and goddess, come together and create their magical child to accomplish their purpose. And they're both very, very much involved in it. And that's our method of doing it. But you should. So, yeah, both of you can achieve God and Goddess work, but then once you've done that, you come back to being a human being, male and female. And see, what is so very, 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 very important in all of this is that in order to become a mature, capable human being and have a really genuine relationship with your partner, you have to see her as a human being, and she has to see you as a human being. You can't be projecting, as teenagers do, projecting their enema on their girlfriend. And of course, naturally, men and women both, they will certainly help you do that, as we all know, and you know, even though that women and men both are very, very good at aiding you in projecting your enema or your enemas upon them, and all. So, I think that the magical process, whether it's sex magic or working together or whatever, helps you realize that, yes, okay, now she's the goddess, all right, and I'm the god, but now tomorrow she's going to be my wife and I'm going to be her husband, and I got to go to work and she's got to take the kids to school or whatever, and you're not living some fantasy because you have the resource of a magical fantasy that you can do and then still realize that you're both human beings. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you, Poke. And I'm looking forward to seeing you next week too.
Well, we're looking forward to it and getting ready and all. And Soror Zandria got me a new a carry-on bag that I'll be able to stuff full of all of those pamphlets panned out to the OTO Lodge, and I'm going to try real hard not to propagandize them too much. But anyway, so thanks, so much for coming on board, and we'll be seeing you next week. Now we got another call. Who is on board?
Oh, hi, Poke. This is Joe. You had a little earlier said, was I still around, and so I called back. But I wanted to say something since, you already said what you were going to say about the stone circle and so on.
Joe, first, now look, we've got, Joe, we're on for 2 hours. We've got plenty of time, so just whatever it is.
Well, you were talking about, putting together stone circles and hinges made out of various materials, which I absolutely agree with you. It's great to be flexible and creative, right? And I wanted to just bring a thought to that about the use of stone circles and wood hinges of various kinds, which is that as you put your stone circle or your wood hinge together with your markers for your different directions, usually people will put out 8, right, for the 8 directions, that is a great place to start, but it's only the beginning. From there, you start making connections with all the land around you in all the directions. By that I mean, if you live in a certain place, you can look at a map or something and find that maybe due east of you, you've got a mountain which you could consider a sacred mountain. You go to that mountain, you pick up a little something small. You're not going to be making an impact, right? Just a little thing. But you bring it back, whatever it is. It could be a small piece of wood or a small stone or something like that. But you bring it back with some intention, right, that it's going to remind you of that particular place. And then you set it down by your eastern marker at the base of it. And then you do the same for every direction. So that then when you're in your circle, you can identify each and every one of those marker items that you've put down as being the thing that connects you to that place that you went to. And so that sets up this resonance between your circle and the larger sacred landscape. And as you call in the landscape around you, and this is all very Farafarian, I understand, okay, it's not OTA, but I'm just explaining Farafaria. You're calling in the spirits.
It ought to be, Joe. It ought to be. Go ahead.
Well, you're calling in this greater realm, everything all the way from where you are all the way out to the horizon. And the horizon is the place where the land meets the sky. It's almost like the realm of the gods because you can never really get there, right? It's the beyond. Yeah. And yet when you're in the middle of your sacred circle, you can look all around you, and between yourself and that horizon, there's, sacred bodies of water, there's, landforms, there's, interesting shapes in the land of various kinds, whatever they are, or maybe there's ocean or islands. And when you call on them, you say their names in your circle, and you go around and you say all these places that you've been, you're bringing all that strength into your circle, and it really changes it. It's just wonderful. I mean, I've done this. It's great.
This is really, really a great idea, a great concept.
I like this a lot, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I really do. And one of the things that I discovered, we have this tantric yoga system that we have, and which is very, very eccentric. But I went up to a very special place, which both Zandria and I have been up to. That we call it Little Mongolia, up behind my place, and I can look out, sit in this old ruined cabin, and I can look out at the mountains across the valley, and get exactly the same vision that you're talking about. And I did the whole sequence of what would otherwise be eccentric yoga, completely eccentric. I did the whole sequence with my eyes open, and projected outward, and it was God. You're right. I mean, it's the idea of connecting yourself with the land around you. And of course, feng shui. Naturally, Fred was deeply into feng shui, of course, and into Taoist star dancing too. He was going to bring down the constellations and dance the constellations on the earth. I have Fred's star sword up over the mantle, and yeah, that's one of the things about that we really need to do and do more of is wilderness magic, and bring the wilderness back to your hench.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah. It's all good.
What do you guys think about that? Those of you that are still with us.
That's such a great idea. I love the idea of extending the circle beyond just the physical hinge and to the greater landscape. That's just beautiful. And you could even, go on a hermetic treasure hunt, trying to find a specific corresponding stones or something, or I don't know.
That's a nice thought.
Based on the direction of the planetary direction of the hinge or something. It gets you thinking, for sure.
Yeah. It's connections and connections and connections. And then what, Fred was always talking about was that, you go, you do these things outdoors, you have your sacred circle outdoors, but then if you have your indoor temple as well, then you take, little objects from the wilderness places and you bring them into your indoor temple, and then you go back to the outdoor place and you evoke, the spirits, shall we say the fairy folk or the spirits of that place. But then when you go back to your indoor temple with the little objects, you can also evoke them there, so that you're constantly connecting between, your sacred outdoor circle, your larger wilderness locations in all directions, and then your indoor temple. So you've got this, magnificent set of resonances that's building up on the sort of astral level over time.
Yep.
Yeah, I think also, the connection to nature. It seems like the high magic needs to connect to nature more, and that's where it's always been sterile, is that it's been too indoors, and it needs to get outdoors, and get involved with the plants and the stones and the water and the air and the elements, and you get reconnected to that psychic nature connection that we all share.
Beautiful. Well put.
Actually, Western ceremonial magic does have this aspect, or did have this aspect back in the late Middle Ages, early Renaissance. There were magicians who actually suggested that you, in fact, we all know that in the so-called grimoires, you get this. Well, go out the deep woods, or go out in the crossroads. Do it. I've always thought that business of doing a full magical operation at a crossroads was not a very good idea, because if it's a crossroads, you're liable to get traffic. So I think that was probably not something terribly practical. But they did.
I think they did it in the middle of the night.
Yeah, they did. But then still, somebody's liable to come riding through there. Anyway. The idea was that they did. They did realize this, and there's a magician, ceremonial magician by the name of Joseph Lisowiski, who's been at it for quite a while apparently, and he is where we really went on the Lemegeton. He's a Heptameron guy. He used to be a Roman Catholic. I guess he still is, and so he has all this. And he thought that the Heptameron was a real good Roman Catholic type demonic grimoire. But Lisowiski, his books are worth reading, even though they're a little bit of brimstone in them. But they're worth reading, and he knows what he's doing. And he said that the most powerful ceremonial magic of summoning spirits and what have you, do it out in the woods on the earth, and do it with bare feet. So you are connected with the earth, and go out into the wilderness and do it. And we actually did that for years, we went out to Bandito, and way out in the Angeles National Forest and set up and had seasonals. And the bears would wake us up in the middle of the night going into the dumpsters and all that. But we had a grand time doing that. We set up a tent city and well, wasn't a city, but a little tent village. And then we'd have this beautiful grove with sequoias, and we'd set up the henge and to do the seasonals right out in the mountains. And that was terrific. And then we planned on doing an operation out on Lightning Point, but we never did do that. Now, the problem, of course, in doing full operations out in the wilderness is that you really it's getting more and more difficult to do that these days. And yet, we still should, as long as we can possibly do it, we should do it.
You mean in the sense of less of people, like?
Oh, all kinds of regulations.
Oh.
The Forest Service finally just we couldn't deal with them anymore. They were just one regulation after another, and finally we realized they just didn't want us. They just didn't want anybody to do anything like that. So we just finally gave it up, which is a sad thing because we did that every summer for about 4 or 5 years. We were going up there, and I really miss it. That was a yearly excursion.
Sounds fabulous.
Yeah, but truly though, Joe, you're absolutely right. If there's a chance, if you got a chance to get out in the woods, get out in nature, and do magic out there in the wilderness, and you and I both know. I mean, this is wonderful and it should be done. But at least we can go out in the henge. We here at Rivendell, we can go out in the henge at night, and we do. And if we even did a glacier operation on the henge at night one time. But I think more and more we should be doing more and more of that. Has anybody got any thoughts on? Let's see. The problems of doing seasonals indoors, and which we're going to do next week, that they can be adapted. Even the maypole, it can all be adapted. John, you got a short maypole now, or how high is that ceiling?
The ceiling's 10 feet tall, so I think we won't have a massive maypole like Freighter Osiris, his 30-foot maypole or whatever. But we'll have something, maybe 9 feet tall. 9 feet, that ought to do it. Now, there's one thing though. You got to get those people moving, and you have to get those ribbons around them. We have each time it's just we got to move them. That's the big, and the way to do that. And I don't know whether I can bring one of my shaman's drums, but I've discovered, and they kind of lately on, I got a couple of real good shaman's drums. And if you got somebody beating the shaman's drum and really, really beating it, you can get people moving. And this is a very, very important thing for seasonals and for circumambulating for evocation. I mean, move them. And just the other night we over at Monsavat we were doing an Astarte evocation, and I got one of my shaman's drums and we just started moving around that circle. And it was Andrea, you were there, and we just moved, and boy, and it is good because it gets you into that altered state, and it's shamanic, and it's just really, it really does it. So, John, have you got a good drum? Oh, I've got a good drum, and I've got friends that have like multiple drums. So, if we want, we could bring the Walls of Jericho down.
Yeah, we'll get them moving because that's just really important. And I think that we get criticized in ceremonial magic for being too Apollonian. There's supposedly Dionysian ceremonies like voodoo or like some forms of I would say whatever. But then we're supposed to be just, oh boy, everything is just very sonorous and so bold and all, blah, 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 blah. You know. But that's circumambulation to the drum. Now that's shamanic, and that gets you in there. So we're back to the subject of the divine feminine aspect in magic, and I think we pretty well described it. But is there anything anybody would like to add about on the topic here? And because we're getting kind of close to our second hour here, and so let's sum up what we've been doing here. Joe, are you still with us?
Yeah, I am still here, and I think you've really gone into it quite a bit. You've talked about your own inspiration directly with Astarte and the different ways in which male and female energies are kind of balanced within the OTA. You've talked about the influence of Fred and Ferferia on the OTA, and I don't know, maybe there's something else that someone wants to say about the role of that. There's these inner, like a dream world, right? Some people say, the feminine is more that aspect than the outer is male. I'm not sure that I completely agree with it, but for some reason I feel kind of called to ask if anybody has any thoughts from the dream world on this.
Attention, dream world. Do you have any thoughts?
Tuning in, cosmic gravitron.
I am dream world. Kelly on dream world. Oh, I'm going to tell you something right now. Frankly, I think women make better receivers than men. They really do, and they're the ones that come forth with the best oracles, and they're the So, well, what more can you ask for, really? I mean, because magic is modern magic, the kind we do, is really based upon a reconstruction of the Renaissance magic. But Victorian magic, they weren't visionary. The Victorians, they had this prohibition against going into trance and having visions. They didn't want to do that. And so we've resurrected that. That's now modern magic. It's visionary. And if it's going to be visionary, the women are frankly better visionaries than the men are. So they are really, in that sense, they are, they're the stars of the show, really, when you get right down to it. And so I think we say we are balanced, but on the other hand, without the female element, we don't have very much. And so on that note, I'm going to wrap it up now. Next week, we are going to be, we're going to get ready to go to Austin. And so we have we're going to do one of our traditional shows next week. What will that do? What's that going to be again, Zandri, the show next week? Oh boy, Christianity, traditional religions, and Hermeticism. Wonderful. That's the one. That should be a good one following this one, and we'll have that one running next week. And then after we get back, we're going to go back for a while on our once a week live schedule because we have a lot of a new approach, and it's going to be very exciting. And we're going to have a new, very exciting, controversial, dynamic, and it'll be once a week live for a while. And so be sure and keep following and listen next week for Christianity and traditional religion and magic, which is a good one to follow this one with. And meanwhile, thanks for everybody. Thanks, John. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Joe. It was a terrific show. I really enjoyed it, and I think we got our message across. And I'm looking forward to a great time down in Texas, and take care of you guys in Georgia. And thanks so much for calling in. And good magic.
Once upon a time, there was a new crossover that refused to play by the rules. It flipped the script and made all the others look like fools. Featuring styling that's sexier by far and handled like a rock star. Introducing the first ever Toyota CHR.
Enjoy agile handling in the body of a seductive crossover that comes with standard 18-inch alloy wheels. The first ever Toyota CHR. The perfect ride to spin your own tail. Toyota. Let's go places. Hello.
Hello.
I got 2 free smartphones when I switched to Metro PCS.
One for him and one for me.
It's not for you. It's for people like me.
And parrots.
I knew I should have gotten a dog.
Get 2 free Samsung Galaxy J3 Prime smartphones when you switch 2 lines to Metro PCS and enjoy a 4G LTE network that's more reliable than ever before. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figured out.
Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network or active on Metro PCS in past 90 days. See store for details, terms, and conditions.